Hello, and welcome to another weekly reading. We have a bit of a relief kind of feeling week, I think, ahead of us, judging on the cards and the astrological energy in the sky. Firstly, we will have both Mercury, who is in his post-retrograde shadow, and Mars in his post-retrograde shadow, moving out of the water signs they went backwards into. So in Mercury's case, he went back into Pisces. He will be getting back into Aries this week. And Mars, who went backwards into Cancer, will be going back into Leo this week. So there is much more forward momentum. They're both picking up speed, and they're leaving behind the emotionally reflective water sign that they went back to travel through some part of their journey. And of course, that means that we went through certain parts of our own deeper reflections and clearing outs. And Venus has just stationed direct on the full moon this weekend. So we're still feeling that Libra full moon energy, in which Venus stationed direct. And it's a beautiful opportunity. The dynamic at the moment is Aries, Libra, me versus we, me and us, that kind of feeling. So it's a balancing out kind of week, and it's a feeling of going from water, which can be really heavily emotional, into fire, which can be quite much more, I wanted to say creative, but water has its own level of creativity. Fire is much more burns through stuff quicker and gets this momentum and motivation and sort of passion back when having been stuck in the heaviness of water. And just to remind you, Venus retrograded through the same two signs as Mercury. So she has just stationed direct also in Pisces. She won't be getting back to Aries this week, but that is the trajectory that she's now going to be able to head towards now that she has stationed direct. So we've got some more kind of Aries vibes here with the dragon, the frankincense, and then a transitioning stone into some more Libra vibes with the lavender and this beautiful feather that I picked up this morning in the garden when I opened the curtains. There was a beautiful hardy-dar feather there for me. So remembering that this is not a personalized reading, pick a card number between 1 and 4 to give yourself the extra added theme that you need for this week. Okay. And let's jump into the cards. If you've picked a number, we will jump in and see what we have. As opposed to very topsy-turvy last week, if I remember correctly, we are mostly right way up this week, except for our final card, the Six of Swords. We have a Cups card, but it is a Knight, so it's a Court card first. We have a Swords card, and then we have two Major Arcana cards in the middle. So the Knight of Cups really speaks to us of romantic ideals. I was actually thinking how Knight of Cups kind of speaks to Neptune, who is very romantic and idealistic in Pisces, having just stepped into Aries, because knights have this element of going to battle for what they believe in. And although this knight is not really one that likes to go to battle, he will fight for love, and he is very idealistic. And so for what feels right and for what is good for the ideal, the dream, he will go to battle. And that feels like that shift that we're all experiencing right now with Neptune moving from Pisces for 14 years, after 14 years, into Aries for the first time in more than 150 years, in fact. So thinking about, sorry, I've got quite a dry, tickly throat today. I'm not sure why. Thinking about what it is that you would fight for that is really aligned with ideals, values, the perfect world, the new world, the way the world is shifting. And that is really exacerbated by the fact that the Hierophant card is very much about traditions. So we have this knight that's going to battle for his ideals and his dreams and for love, basically, and really thinking of love not necessarily as romantic love, but as only love is real kind of love. Like love is the highest thing that we should achieve, and that is love of everyone, acceptance of everyone. Then we have the Hierophant. That's always a tricky card, and it's actually one of my personal cards that I have to work with quite strongly in this lifetime. And so I find it always pushes me to look deeper into certain things where I might get stuck in, because the Hierophant is traditionally represented by a pope, really. It is very much about traditions and those strong structures and ideologies and yeah, just really strong religious belief systems and that side of things, which can make it feel, especially in modern world, because obviously tarot's been around a very, very long time, and the world has changed and people have changed, and the amount of different religious belief systems that there are now, or a religious belief systems that there are now from when tarot was begun, has obviously really shifted. So a lot of the time when we look at tarot, there is this necessity to modernize. I mean, including this deck, which is a modern deck, which is obviously my favorite. I use it all the time. An absolutely beautiful deck. And her depiction is not of this really stern, focused pope, but rather of this meditating kind of guru with this energy of joy and lightness. And I think if you think of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and if you think of his book on joy with the Dalai Lama, and you think of that energy, those are spiritual leaders as much as the more sort of serious, stern, rigid type spiritual leaders would be. And maybe looking at the balance between those things, different types of traditions, your traditions versus my traditions. Remember, we're in me and us with Libra Aries. So allowing yourself to look, what did I grow up with? And what do I see around me? And can I love that individual even though they are very different to me, grew up differently to me, etc. So again, there's a sort of stuckness in our rigidity and beliefs oftentimes with the Hierophant, but this desire to grow spiritually, and to grow spiritually means acceptance, surrender, trust, love above all, which this knight is willing to fight for. And then we have the Justice card, which is really about fairness and justice for all and finding some level of balance. And it's a very Libra connected card. And of course, this full moon that we just had was the Libra full moon. It was also the lunation that ended eclipse season. So the new moon just before that was our last eclipse in this season. And so then that Libra moon bookends the end of that season. So here it's like, let's really have a good look at what's come up in the last month. And how do we balance that all out in the last maybe more than a month? We could even look at 6 weeks at least, because of that eclipse cycle being quite intense. And so now we say, well, how do we work through that? How do we work through the things that really started to show up that felt unfair, that felt like the old stuck belief systems that didn't fit the ideal that I'd like to fight for? But I don't want to go out and do harm, okay? Because of course, going to battle often does harm with the intent of good. And the justice system is trying to say, well, you can't just willy-nilly go and murder people or steal from people. But are there circumstances in which that is okay? Like in war, those types of things tend to happen. And, you know, people are not really held accountable by the same set of rules and standards and beliefs. We're back to beliefs that they would be in ordinary society. So it's about finding all these parts inside of you. Like when would it be okay for me to go to battle? And I'm talking largely metaphorically here. Although if we're looking at the world situation, it's probably not just metaphorically. But for this reading, I'm really just wanting you to have a deep look at what is it that I'm prepared to fight for, that feels right for me now, that feels right not only for me but for us, because it's not just about me, but I have to check deeply into how I feel, what I resonate with, what I believe to be true, and then fight for what is right and just for us all. Because in the end, you are just one person within the community. You are just one human within humanity. You are just one earthling upon the earth. And that's the point. But you cannot make that change for everybody. You cannot decide and choose on everybody's set of beliefs and ideals. That is not your job to do. You can only get clear on yours. So you need to just get clearer and clearer on who you are and what you believe, on what energy you want to bring to the world, with the overall focus of, I mean, this card is very much about doing no harm and being fair and balanced, and living in a fair and balanced society and community where everybody gets heard, where everybody gets a say, where everybody is held accountable in the same way, no matter if you are the oldest to the youngest, no matter if you are the wealthiest to the poorest, whatever your status, your economic status is, whatever your religion is, whatever, you are held to the same set of rules as somebody on the polar opposite side to you. So when you're making up those ideals and ideas and rules in that new society in your heart that you would fight for, realize that you will be held accountable to the same set of rules no matter what. And I think that is how we develop this better new world that I know many of us anyway are really hoping to be a part of. And then we have our one upside down card this week, which is, of course, that Six of Swords. And I feel like this card has been coming up for us quite a lot, and she's really struggling. She's taking too much on the journey. So it's like, here we know that we have to go to battle for something. We have to clear our beliefs and our old traditional things and just realize what stays and what goes. But now it's like we're taking too much. We're taking too much with us that we're going to sink the ship. And so it is about shedding. And remember that we're in the year of the snake in the Chinese zodiac. So the year of the snake is about shedding in order to heal, shedding in order to feel more comfortable in your new skin. Because if you're creating something new, of course, some things come with you and you are a sum of your parts, and everything you have experienced to this point is in you. But you literally cannot travel with every single person you have been traveling with. You literally cannot keep every relationship, or maybe for you it's just your job and you lose the work relationships. Maybe you lose a primary relationship. Maybe that's by choice because you get out of a strong relationship, or maybe it's through death. Somebody dies and you have to grieve a relationship. The fact is that as much as you may want to, you cannot take every part of your old world into your new. And that is a hard thing. And the upside down version of this card is showing resistance to that, is showing us struggling with knowing what to let go of. So it's like taking all the clutter because you've loved it, trying to take every relationship because it's been important to you. But in the end, you're not serving the other person or yourself, because some things run their course. Some things are only for a season. And I mean, particularly recently for me, I've had to realize that the kinds of relationships that are for a season are ones you thought were supposed to be forever. And that's quite hard, when primary relationships in your life that you think are supposed to be forever, or primary belief systems. Maybe you are having a shift in your religious ideology, and this is like jarring. It's like tearing metal, because this has been your whole life, and now suddenly you're going, but maybe there's more to it than that, or maybe I don't want to be so fundamentally fixed in my religious beliefs, but my whole family is. What does that mean? That kind of thing I'm seeing quite often in my work. It's difficult. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Making these changes is difficult, but we cannot carry everything with us. So we keep needing to shed. And you don't necessarily have to do it all at once. Just be prepared for peeling back the layers, shedding the skins as they are ready to release, even though there is a level of sacrifice that must be made for us. We have to sacrifice that part of ourselves, that belief system, that ideology, that version of us that much of it is still loved. And it doesn't mean you have to lose love. And that brings us right back round to love, where we started this whole reading. You're not losing the love of the things that you had. You're just moving beyond that season or stage or age of life. I mean, we cannot stay the baby. We cannot stay the toddler. We cannot stay the tween. We cannot stay the teen. If you just look at the physiological aging and cycle of life, we are changing. It doesn't matter how much you try, you cannot stay in any one of those ages. And it's kind of like that. We need to look upon it as that. It's not that you're doing something wrong. It's not that it's supposed to be easy. Every stage of our life development has its challenges. I mean, being a toddler and trying to individuate at that point where you've suddenly realized you can say no, but you have parents who don't let you get away with eating all the cookies in the cookie jar, that's hard. That's frustrating. You don't quite have the language that you wanted. It's like that. We're all going through these changes in our own life at our own stage and perspectives. And there's a lot in this reading that talks about like a new perspective. Change your perspective. Look at something from a different angle, in a different light. It's not wrong or right, although I mean the justice card is kind of speaking to how can we make it more simplified? How can we make it more it's right or wrong, it's good or bad? And maybe we do need to on some level simplify, but ultimately in the end of the day, saying goodbye to certain things because they no longer fit doesn't mean they didn't once fit. They didn't once work. They weren't once perfect for us. They were, but now they no longer are, and that's okay. Don't take everything with you. It's time to shed. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for your likes, shares, follows, subscribes, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.